Why would a nonprofit give up a $50,000 general operating grant from a foundation just so other nonprofits could receive more money? Can you even imagine? What does husband centered marriage have to do with fundraising? How do you try to show love to donors? And do you know if you're being actually loving with them? Are you ready for some fun opportunities to get to know Wu Lei a little better, including his potential money making scheme involving Ross Dress for Less? Does the name Wu Lei mean anything to you? I imagine the answer is yes for most of you. He's been hard to miss over the last few years in the worlds of philanthropy and nonprofits. But just in case you need a refresher or you're newer to it all, he's been working in the nonprofit sector for over 20 years, many of those years as an executive director, and he writes the blog nonprofitaf.com, where he's collected over 600 posts over the years, and he's developed into a regular keynote speaker now at events all over the place. He and I cover a lot of ground in this conversation, including about his new book that's about to come out next month. And if you ask me, this conversation is grounding, inspiring, fun, and like a nice warm bath or hug. I hope you experience all these things. Thanks for being here and for listening. Welcome to the For the Love of Humanity podcast, a place for those who'd like to see philanthropy be less of the industry it has become and return to its roots, love of humanity. This place is beautiful and hopeful, and it's nothing without you. Community is the way. Community has always been the way, and philanthropy has lost its way as it's developed over the years. We are re-centering community at For the Love of Humanity, and community is what we seek in everything we do. Friends, to love and care for our fellow human beings is one of the most human things we can do. Let's get back to the roots of what it means to be human. Let's return to true philanthropy together. Hi, everybody. I have Wu Lei here. I think most of you know him because he's been a man about town for quite a while. I know that I've been reading him for well over a decade and appreciating everything he says about the nonprofit sector and ways that we can make it better. I think that for a lot of us, he says the things that we all want to say or are thinking, and it just feels like somebody sees me, somebody knows what I'm going through. I think that's one of the things we really appreciate about him. So I'm thrilled to have him here and to be able to have a conversation with him and to share it with you all. I think that you will benefit from hearing his voice actually speaking instead of just in writing, as he's starting to do more and more these days. He's a keynote speaker and now a book author, which is one of the things we will be talking about today, too. This is a brand new book that's coming out in October 2025. Welcome, Wu Lei.
Thank you, Cecilia. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm still a baby podcaster, but I'm doing all right. This is fun because, like you said, it's just us chatting and having a good conversation. I personally love good conversations, especially about philanthropy and nonprofits and how we can make them better. And I think you are one of the best people I could possibly talk to about that topic. So I'm just grateful you're here.
Well, thank you for having me and congrats for starting the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. So, one of the things I decided to do, since this podcast is for the love of humanity, is to have a question that I talk to everybody who comes on the podcast about, and that is related to the topic. of For the Love of Humanity. I'm wondering if you can share a story of a time that you remember feeling dehumanized. And then after that, I'd love to hear a story of a time that you felt especially human or humanized.
Okay. Start with the softball questions
Yeah.
on this
I
podcast.
mean, for sure. That's what I'm all about.
The time I felt dehumanized was probably when I had my first baby and I was on paternity leave, and this funder calls me up and was like, "Can you and these two partner organizations can you get them and can you come to our office tomorrow real quick? We had applied for a grant for $100,000." And I was on paternity leave, but I thought, this is good. I'm gonna take a little bit of time, and it probably means that we're advancing to the next stage, right? So we got there, we parked in downtown Seattle, and they told us that we did not get the grant and that they were there to give us some feedback about why we didn't get the grant. And I hadn't been sleeping for, like weeks, like several days. And I just lost it. I was like, "Are you kidding me? You could have just told us all this over the phone. Why did you drag 3 liters to downtown Seattle for you to tell us something that could have just been brought up over the phone?" And they said, "Well, it's because, well, we didn't want you to, like, maybe tell other people, so we wanted you to keep it confidential." I said, "You are wasting everyone's time, right? This is not appropriate." Anyway, I just let them have it because I was just sleep deprived. And then the next time I ran to a friend who worked at that office, she said, "Oh yeah, like they thought they were wondering why you were so upset. And they asked me if it was like a cultural thing because she's also Vietnamese." And she was like, "Is this like a Vietnamese thing?" That Vu was so upset.
No, this is a human
Yes,
thing.
it's a human thing, right? That's
Oh
what
my
really starts
God.
humanizing. It's like the wasting of time, the power dynamic, the pulling us in. We had spent so much time just preparing because we thought they wanted us, to do like a site visit for a grant proposal. So yeah, I will always remember that because it was so hilarious. The time I felt humanized was when I had my 2 babies and I was taking the light rail in Seattle, and it was so crowded, and I was just holding, one baby in one arm and the other kid, it was like 2 or 3 at the time, and I was just holding his hand, and we were trying not to, fall down on the train. And these 2 just lovely women, just like, "Hey, did you mind, do you wanna sit down? We can get up." And I was like, "Oh, I'll be okay." But really, I was not, like, the baby was being threatened of being flung out of my arm. So, they were like, "No, no, 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 sit down. Yeah, you have your babies." So, we sat down, and it just made me realize, like, it was just so nice, just like that simple gesture of seeing their kids, because I think our kids are really important to all of us, and they are one of the biggest factors in humanizing all of us is, like, children in the world. So, I really appreciated that gesture.
Yeah. Someone actually seeing you and connecting with like who you were and what your need was. And it seems like even feeling a sense of responsibility for you too. It's like, oh, here's a young dad with kids. Like
Yeah.
these are my people. Like I want to step in. I want to help. I want to be there for them somehow.
Yeah, I love that. I love this idea that all the kids are our kids, right?
Oh, for sure. That is
Yeah, I
definitely where
love
I
that
come from.
idea.
Yeah, I definitely always identify with that James Baldwin quote where he says the children are always ours, all of them. And I think you're right. It's kind of like people say that they never made as many friends or had as many conversations as when they have a dog, you know? It's like there's something about kids and dogs that even if we can't see each other's humanity in a lot of other settings, it seems like when kids and dogs are involved, somehow a lot of people seem to have whatever those walls are just come down and it's not you and me anymore, it's us, and we're gonna connect, like, through these kids or through this dog, and I love that that happened for you. I hate that that funder thing happened for you. My gosh. Like, it seems so silly too that they wouldn't have given you a heads up about what exactly they wanted to talk about. When I see you all, preparing for however many hours you spent preparing to, like, talk about what you thought they wanted to talk about, what a waste that was. What a waste it was for you to go all the way downtown, park your car, walk however far you want. Like, why wouldn't they just tell you what they wanted to talk to you about in the first place? Like, that's so basic. And then, yeah, like, why? If they really wanted to be confidential, why can't you be confidential over the phone? You can do that over the phone.
Yeah.
But
It's
also,
very strange.
why did it have to be confidential? There's something that feels odd about that to me too.
It was ridiculous. We all went to commiserate at a bar at like 11 a.m. after that meeting, which I don't recommend. We do need to talk about coping methods in our sector that may not be the healthiest here.
But yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you, and I hope if anybody's listening that can understand how maybe you might be motivated to approach a meeting like this, but maybe all the reasons why not to, just give people a sense of what's up. Like, tell them what you want to talk about. Check in with them about what works best for them and try to do that. And also, maybe we should stop having so much confidentiality or even secrets or just not being straight up and real with people within this sector. Like, I think we need to have more real talk and just tell people what it is. Like, don't be beating around the bush or speaking in code or whatever. So, yeah, one of the things you've become most known for over the years is your involvement in launching the community centric fundraising movement. I'm curious to hear you say in your own words, what is community centric fundraising?
Yeah, CCF is about grounding fundraising philosophies and practices in equity and justice. Because right now, the way we've been taught to do fundraising, the way that we practice it, has always been about, donors' feelings and passions and making sure they feel like heroes, right? And that hasn't really been working very well. It's created all sorts of things, such as white saviorism, poverty tourism, and also forces nonprofits to compete with one another in this Hunger Games instead of allowing us to work together. So CCF is about, talking to our donors about where the wealth comes from, talking to them about taxes, talking about systemic issues that cause all these problems with raising money to fight in the first place. It's about nonprofits supporting one another and working collectively to create this just and equitable world.
In some ways, it feels like more of what we just were talking about because there's real systems and realities that are within the bigger picture that we all are working within. And I think that so often nonprofits have been so myopic and just, they're only looking what's right in front of their face. That's all they're seeing. And it's like stepping back and looking at the big picture and being real about where does this money come from? How are we actually related to each other? Oh, yes, that's right. My mission is not just a discrete mission that only affects the people I think I'm serving. It's connected to all these other things, all these other organizations are working on within my community. They're all connected.
We're not trained to think that way. We are trained to raise as much money for our own organization and don't think about anyone else. So, CCF is not about that. It's about what is good for the entire community, what's good for the ecosystem and everyone who exists in that community. And that includes things such as nonprofits thinking about the well being of other nonprofits,
Mm.
including sometimes not applying for grants, not taking money. An example of this is in the beginning of the pandemic here, a foundation told me that they gave out $50,000 grants, general operating grants to a bunch of nonprofits in the area, which was really cool. What was even cooler and really moving was that several of these nonprofits declined the funding. They said, "We really appreciate this, but we're doing okay right now. We know other organizations around us are not doing as well. So we're going to decline this money so you have more to give to other nonprofits." Like that is mind blowing and probably blasphemous to the way that we've been taught, right? But isn't that really cool and inspiring to hear about? That's how it should be,
It's
right?
very cool. Yes, that is how it should be. And it's countercultural. And I think that so much of what the counter is, the counter of the countercultural is counter to the ways we've all been conditioned throughout our life to just live within capitalism and see everything we're doing through the lens of capitalism, within the model of capitalism, and just also our American way of individualism. I think those two are related. But it's like this idea that my purpose here on the planet is to win, to collect as much as I can collect, and to keep as much as I can keep, and to extract as much as I can extract. And then I'll know that I did good, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, we think about that as being bad in the private sector. It's like all these corporations being extremely greedy, making as much money as they could, but we don't realize that we're doing something very similar in the nonprofit sector. I was writing about the retailification of nonprofits and philanthropy, right? We become like a giant marketplace. We're all vendors clamoring for customers and donors. Some of us have really good marketing strategies, really good customer service. We write handwritten thank you notes and we thank people on time and we give them tailored, personalized experiences that they come to our stall in this market and spend money there. I think that is not the framing that we should have. I think we should have the framing of like we're all in a village where half the village is on fire and we all need to pull together and put out the fires. And in which case, there are no vendors and there are no customers. It's just all of us existing together in a village, and all of us are being threatened by these fires, the fires of poverty and racism and fascism and genocide. That's what we should be focusing on. It has been really amazing and rewarding just seeing people taking on the CCF movement and seeing it just spread all over the US. I've been so grateful to
Yeah.
see people connecting with this movement and helping to advance it.
Yeah, and I hope this is gratifying for you to hear, but I distinctly remember your very first post sort of noodling on this whole idea of community-centric fundraising versus donor-centric fundraising. And what a breath of fresh air it was to me. I had already been in the field as a fundraiser for almost a decade at that point. I'm actually trained as a social worker like you. I have my MSW like you. And so,
Yay! Fellow
yay,
MSW.
hey, MSWs. And so, like, I think that's part of why. Also, just because I've been a long time meditator and I've always been very in touch with myself and my own humanity, it always just felt icky the way we were doing our work. And I was a good soldier. I was being told by my elders and my mentors, like, this is how we do it. And I love to learn. So I followed all the gurus. And looking back now, I know for a fact that all those best practices I was learning are literally commercial marketing best practices. That's where they came from. All these people I was listening to, all these guys, they come from commercial direct marketing. Even the stuff related to major gifts comes from commercial best practices that we just accept as how you do it. This is how you communicate. This is how you market. This is how you get the word out. But like you're saying, the unintended consequence is that we end up literally recreating the very issues within the larger society we live in that have actually created the need for the nonprofits in the first place. Within nonprofits, we're recreating those exact same problems because we're just hewing to the way things are done out there instead of creating a new way to do it that is actually much more honest and apt for work in community, which is,
Yeah.
say, a community centric focus.
Yeah, I always joke that I think this sort of this hyper focus on donors. I mean, we have things that we've accepted as best practice, and again, we get them from a lot of the fundraising experts. And to an extent, it's because they work, right? These strategies work to
Yep.
bring in money. And if that's
Yep.
a definition of what something works is bringing money, then yeah, these things work. But, and then we have strategies such as like you must use the word you all the time. You did this because of you. Always focus on the donor. Don't focus on your own organization or even the clients you serve. Just focus on the donors and how they're feeling. You write handwritten thank you notes and it makes them feel like heroes and all these strategies. And I kind of liken it to like husband centered marriages. And like I've been a husband before and I would love it if every single time I did the dishes or something, my partner would write me a handwritten thank you note. It's like, you did this, dear Vu, because of you doing the dishes, our family is stronger. Because of you, our community is better. The children and I are so thankful for your presence in our family. Please come to this exclusive wine and cheese event for amazing husbands like you. Like I would probably love that, right? And I'd be more likely to do the dishes. But is that the kind of environment, the kind of partnership that we want? When is that even a true partnership? If one person is constantly chasing the other one,
Yes.
constantly, like ensuring that their feelings are being centered and that they feel good about themselves and all that stuff. I don't think that's a real partnership. I don't think you can actually accomplish a lot in terms of equity and justice having that sort of relationship. Like in a real partnership, we need to be able to have difficult conversations with one another.
Yes.
And for our donors, it means like, let's examine your wealth. Where does your wealth come from? A lot of wealth in this country comes from slavery and stolen indigenous land, worker exploitation, environmental degradation, tax avoidance. And so if we don't examine these things, then oftentimes we're just perpetuating these systems and thinking that we're doing a really good job, when we're not. So CCF is trying to get funders and donors to examine their wealth and figure out the systems they may be complicit in perpetuating. It's really exciting. The first time I wrote about this, I had someone on Twitter saying that we need to stop Boo. His views are dangerous. I'm like, my views are dangerous. Yeah, apparently asking people to talk about stolen indigenous land is very dangerous. Like,
Since the very beginning, I did not know that. Well, I just want to point out because I know how a lot of fundraisers think because I am one. And I've come up through the system. I'm a certified fundraising executive. I love your metaphor of the husband centered marriage because I hope it really illustrates for people why it's so unhealthy for us to relate to donors the way we've been trained to. That is not, as you just said, and I have often said too, that is not a real relationship. That's a hollow facsimile of a relationship. Like that's not you're just like play acting at a relationship if you're not actually going to have an honest conversation with a human being that you're in relationship with. Real relationships are honest, are open, are just talking through things that are real between the parties. So if you actually, everybody talks about relationships within fundraising. Well, if you actually want to have real relationships with your donors, that means that you have to have hard conversations with them. You have to talk about things that are hard to talk about, or maybe they don't want to hear because that's what a real relationship is.
yeah, and we don't stop to think about just how many of these things we perpetuate. Like I think about the hashtag donor love or whatever. I'm pretty sure I'll offend people where I'm just like, no, we need to stop this type of hashtag. Okay. Like, why donor love? What does that even look like? What does love look like? Because this hashtag is not about like, what does actual love look like? You love someone, like you said, Cecilia, like you would have honest conversation with them, including telling them when they're wrong or
Yes.
pointing out that maybe they said something that was racist
Yeah.
or helping them become better human beings, helping them to find what's meaningful in life and not just being thankful and giving them praise and handwritten notes, which are not necessarily bad things by themselves. But if that's the only thing you focus on, that's not love.
No.
Yes, it's
Amen.
just
Amen.
yeah, just last
But
week I was arguing with this one dude who's like, "Oh, it's their money." Someone was criticizing foundation overhead rates, because foundations have been yelling at us for having a high overhead while they themselves have ridiculous overhead. I mean, if you really think about it, foundations are like 100% overhead,
Mhm.
right? Unless they run direct program, they're basically 100% overhead.
Mhm.
And they've been criticizing us. So someone was pushing back and saying, "Hey, look, foundation overheads are really high, and they should stop like yelling at nonprofits about overhead." And this person chimed in and was like, "Well, it's their money. Also, we need to treat them like heroes, and we should be grateful for the money they give." I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna throw up this chocolate that I had eaten." I'm
It
like,
was chocolate
treat
at
them
that
like
moment, huh?
heroes. If I ever hear anyone say we need to treat our donors like heroes, I will throw up.
Well,
Don't make me throw up.
and it's I feel like so many people don't want to hear you say that stuff, Vu, because you're angry. And you're angry when you say it because it's so frustrating to see how we all are so complicit in this. things are just not okay in how our society is set up. There's so much injustice, so much inequity, there are so many issues, and people are just rubber stamping them in how they're relating to the people who have some of the most power to change it. If they're holding money, they have power. Money is power in so many ways. And so, yeah, people are not willing to nudge. And I 100% agree with what you said that if you want to love another human, being honest with them is the way to do that. It is not loving to have somebody else say something that's racist and not point it out. And I know that people think it's polite or maybe even loving to not say something, but it's actually far more loving to point it out and to help them understand what they're saying and why it is the way it is, and to help them maybe find a better way to be.
It's loving, but it's also more joyful. Like,
Yeah.
I think about people talking about the joy of fundraising, and let's be honest with ourselves. I think we've probably deluded ourselves into thinking that fundraising has been joyful. It has not been joyful, and I think one of the reasons is because we're in this space where we're actually not in authentic partnerships with one another. We put donors on pedestals and so on. We don't actually have meaningful relationships with them. I think it's more joyful when we actually help them do what's meaningful. So an example I put it in my book is a friend of mine who's a major donor, and she attended this donor circle with the Social Justice Fund over here. And in that giving circle, everyone was asked to examine their family's wealth. And my friend discovered that her family's wealth was built on stolen indigenous land. And she had this epiphany that when she gets her inheritance, she's going to give 100% of it back to the native community. Right. So I asked her, like, how do you feel about this? And she said, well, first of all, it doesn't matter how I feel. I'm a white woman who benefited from stolen indigenous land. My feelings are not relevant except for whatever motivates me to make reparation with this. But if you're asking me as a friend, I would tell you it feels amazing, right? It feels joyful.
Mhm.
And I really appreciated that framing because this is what authentic joy in fundraising looks like.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, I have participated in Social Justice Fund Northwest's one of their sister organizations giving project program. And there's a number of these programs around the country. So if you're listening to this and you're interested in having an experience like this, you can look them up. There's several of them around. But I agree. There's something about the joy of being in community. And the whole purpose of these giving projects is cross class, multiracial, multi-generational community of giving. So you're building community. And again, the honesty is there. You look at your class background and what it means for you. You look at how your class background relates to all the other people that you are in the circle with, and you talk openly and honestly about the wealth. In a lot of ways, you get to be human together because the wealth isn't standing between you and another human. You're just putting it in front of you as like a conversation piece for you both to think through or talk through. And then you're just going to connect with each other about what does that mean? And what can we do about it? And how can we actually move forward in a way that is going to be creating the world that we want to see together? That is so joyful to have those kinds of conversations for sure. Boo, your book, it's coming out October 14th, less than a month from now. I hope you're getting excited. But I'm curious, why'd you write the book now? Why'd you write it in the first place? Why now?
Yeah. Well, I think, well, there's several reasons for writing a book. And I'm not necessarily recommending writing a book. I have to go through this very like arduous ordeal with it. But some of the reasons are one was that I have written so many things right now, like 600 blog posts or
Oh,
so.
wow.
And it's really, I think it can be overwhelming for people to be like, what are his main ideas? And so it's helpful to just kind of condense them into one, like organize, there's a chapter on everything. I've been ranting about boards. So those ideas are synthesized into the board chapter and so on, right? But the other thing, to be honest, is because of the way we prioritize what forms of communications have validity in this sort of white, patriarchal, heteronormative culture, and that people with books are taken more seriously than someone with a silly sounding blog, right? And so in some ways, like I'm not one to bend to cultural norms and stuff, but I realize that sometimes I need to be strategic in what I do. And a book, a very boring titled book, it's reimagining nonprofits and philanthropy, unlocking the full potential of
I
a
mean, it looks
vital
kind of boring
complex.
too. It's like white and it's got like one color, maybe two colors on the cover. It's
I
like,
know there's no unicorns on the cover,
no, there's no
nothing's being
crime.
set on fire, you
I mean,
know.
what the heck
I
is
know,
this?
right? But unfortunately, this is also what people listen to. And I would like these ideas to go into universities and into like I guess it's a book that I wish I had been available when I was starting my career because maybe it would have helped me avoid many of the mistakes that I made when I was starting out. You know, I made so many mistakes because I thought this was the best practices, including in fundraising, as we talked about, right? But like with boards, for example, I was taught this is how boards operate. This is what you do. And then I went into my community and realized that these lessons, not only were they useless, but they were actually kind of harmful to the communities I was trying to serve. So it's helpful to think about how do we pass down the lessons we've learned and give permission to younger generations of leaders to think, yeah, this is all made up. Let's try something else.
Yeah, it is all made up. So we can make up something different. And perhaps we need to rethink what success, quote unquote, means, right? So it's just been dollar signs before. And it seems like we need to have more measures beyond the dollar signs. We need to look at other things that we're going to value in addition to the dollars. We're not saying don't value the dollars, but value other things in addition to the dollars. I'm curious, Vu, how much your boots on the ground experience working in and with nonprofits inform the book, or whether there are stories about that in there. How has that been?
Yeah. Yeah, there's tons of stories. I've been in the sector for over 20 years now, and I've run 2 nonprofits as executive director. I've had 13 years of being an ED. And when you're an ED of a small nonprofit, you're also a fundraiser, right? I mean, most EDs are also fundraisers.
Yeah.
So yeah, so all of those years of experience have really informed, but also a lot of my own experience with my, my cultural upbringing and so on have also informed the views that I have on many things. For example, going back to fundraising, we think that thank you notes are the way to go. They're like the gold standard handwritten thank you notes. But if we stop to think about it, it's not necessarily a way that a lot of communities or other cultures thank people. Like we don't express gratitude. In Vietnamese culture, we do not write thank you notes often. You just don't. Maybe if you feel sense of gratitude, you give people food. Like, and in some ways, that's probably better, right? Or you respect them enough that if they said thank you, that's it. Yeah, you trust them and you appreciate that they mean it when they say thank you. So now you don't have to do a follow-up thank you note again, as if you didn't believe them the first time when they said thank you, right? Which is why I get so irritated, for example, requiring job applicants to write thank you notes. Like
Mhm.
they literally thanked you on their way out. You know, like why do they need to now write a thank you note? Why is there this unwritten rule that you have to write a handwritten thank you note to thank people? And then if you don't, then obviously you're like a crappy job candidate and you get punished. I think it's an awful way that we've been operating because we have this very white corporate lens that we do everything by.
Mhm. Amen. Yep. Yeah, I agree. I'm glad that you're bringing those practical, real world stories into the book. I mean, I know you're not a fortune teller, but what do you suppose readers might take away from reading the book?
Yeah, there's a chapter on everything. It starts with a chapter on how great our sector is. Okay. Like I love our sector. I think it
Yeah.
has some of the most brilliant people. We have to be brilliant and
Yes.
creative because of all the challenges we deal with in terms of funding and all this stuff. Then it talks about like the 9 horsemen of nonprofit and philanthropic ineffectiveness, right? And they include things such as like the lack of imagination and neoliberalism and white moderation, toxic intellectualizing, the Dunning-Kruger effects,
Mhm.
scarcity and martyrdom complex, self-preservation, and a couple more. And they have been really affecting every single thing that we do. And it's really important for us to understand them so we can mitigate them. And then the rest of the book delves into specific topics like fundraising, evaluation, hiring, workplace culture, philanthropy, advocacy. So I'm hoping that people can read through this and go, wow, I don't have to do the stuff that I've been taught because it's, I don't, why do we need to have one solitary executive director? Look at these people that we talked about who had like three co-directors at the same time, right? Or you read the board chapter and you go, oh, maybe we don't need to use Robert's rules. Why do we even have to use Robert's rules? Why? Right. And so giving people permission to think and to do things differently. That's like I think maybe one of the main things, but also I'm hoping to restore people's imagination about what is possible for a world and get people to feel the urgency of like we don't have time. We do not have time right now for us to be distracted by all sorts of things that have made us less effective. We need to sweep aside all those things that have been distracting us and start focusing on like saving democracy and humanity here because it's brutal out there.
I think there's something so cool about that. I don't know how you're going to feel about me saying this, but I'll say it anyway. You are kind of evolving into an elder in the sector now. I will
Yes.
say I have been realizing that I'm evolving into an elder now too. And so, it's sort of like it's interesting to kind of be moving into that space. But, I alluded to before how I look to my elders and I look to my mentors before about how do you do things? And they told me, here's what you do. And so I did them. There's something so liberating and hopeful to me about you as an elder within the sector. You have so much experience. You've been in the trenches, you've done the work, basically writing a book for folks who are going to be going through school and going to be newer, and even folks that have been in the sector for a while, saying, guess what? Be creative. Like, listen to yourself, listen to your community, see what works for you and do that. You don't have to listen to everybody else and what they say you need to do. I'm telling you that you don't need to. It's not necessary. That is a really cool message that I hope more people start to hear.
Yeah. Thanks, Cecilia. Yeah. I'm like embracing my elderliness, So yeah, like this, like the graying hair and the wrinkles, they're marks of wisdom. I don't know why I still break out into acne though. It seems very unfair, but at least the wrinkles distract from the acne.
Oh my goodness. Well, thinking back to a younger Vu with less gray in the hair, one of the things I wondered as I thought about talking to you today was how you've become very well known for being a truth teller and just saying the thing that a lot of us are thinking, maybe want to say, but don't feel like we can, things that we're experiencing. And I'm just so curious how, when you first started out, when you first started saying these things and putting it out there, think back to that time. If you can, try to remember what do you think gave you the courage to start speaking out and to start being more open about your criticisms and going toe to toe with the power structures? Where do you think that courage came from, or how do you think you gathered it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think some of this goes back into like it will become a therapy session. I feel like a lot of our actions are determined by our childhood upbringing. And this is something I've been working with my therapist on, which I recommend most people get
Yes.
into therapy, right?
Cosign, cosign.
Right. And one of the things that the therapy sessions helped me realize was that, being an immigrant kid whose family escaped a really brutal situation over there where my father was imprisoned in a re-education camp because he had fought against North Vietnam and stuff, right? Um, and it really affects how I perceive the world. It made me realize that one, I want to help people, but and I've been trying to figure out like what is the best way to go about doing that, right? And maybe it might just be chance where I started writing, and people started to gravitate towards that and say, oh yeah, this is good. This is something that is valuable to me, and so on. And that kind of started spiraling the reinforcement I get from people saying this is really helpful. I think it really reinforced my childhood of being this kid who had to help his parents and navigate like survival in a new world. Like they didn't speak any English, so we kids had to become interpreters and so on. So I guess that space I've always been in of like being a bridge between and trying to get them to the resources or the ideas they need to survive and so on. But again, that's like therapy type stuff. The other thing I think about is just like, I don't know, I think about like the privileges that I have and how other people have been saying these things. I mean, many of the things I'm saying are not necessarily original things, right? They are things that people have been saying for years and years. Maybe I put pictures of baby animals on them or like a metaphor around this, but like many people, especially women of color and people from other marginalized communities, have been saying these things for years and years, and oftentimes get ostracized for it. So that gives me courage because I think, okay, those of us who have more privilege, we should be more courageous. We should be because we have benefited from other people who have lost things because they spoke up for us. I think about the civil rights leaders, for example, many of whom were beaten and murdered because they were trying to fight for rights that we now enjoy. So I think, who am I in this space if I don't try to summon some courage and help to make the world better when I've benefited from the work of so many people who sacrificed so much in the past and currently.
Hmm. I love it. Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense, Vu. And I think the other thing that comes to mind is the root of that word courage. One of the roots of that word is heart. And it feels like a lot of it came from just your heart, your love, your care, from having that experience being a new immigrant with your family. And then also, like you said, I can totally see how the feedback you might have gotten from folks that, wow, this is helping us, or thank you, could kind of keep opening your heart even more and increasing your courage even more because you're realizing, wow, writing this way is actually helping somebody or many somebodies. So it's worth it to me because this is how I know I'm making a difference and I'm helping people. Um,
Yeah. Plus also the gratitude that I feel for nonprofits because my family, when we first arrived, we didn't have anything. And it was all these nonprofits who, who helped us. I mean, they literally brought us food and warm clothing because we came from this tropical country and we didn't have, like even warm winter clothing to wear. And it was all these neighborly people came over and helped us out and restored this sense of belonging that I didn't think we would feel again. And so I'm really grateful for nonprofits and what they do every single day and the people in it. And I don't know, I know I criticize the sector quite a bit and have made a living out of it, right? But the reality is that I really love our sector. I really love the people in our sector. The criticism comes from a place of love, like from a place of like, I think that we're amazing.
yeah.
And let's be even more amazing by removing all these different archaic thinking and practices that we've been engaged in.
Amen. Yeah, I can feel it. I can feel your love. And I also come from the perspective of, again, like we were talking about, that is the most effective way to love the sector is to help it be better. So I'm glad that you're on the scene. If you'd like to engage in this conversation with the For the Love of Humanity podcast community, you can leave a message by texting or calling 1-612-440-4819. That's 1-612-440-4819. Keep your message as concise as you can, especially if you'd like it shared on the air. And be sure to indicate in your message whether you're cool with us airing it publicly with your first name. Otherwise, we can air it anonymously too. And remember, you can either call and leave a voice message or you can text. Either one works. And let us know your preference about sharing, whether with your name or anonymously. I really hope to engage in conversation with you this way. So please do call or text. That's 1-612-440-4819. You know, one of the things that you have talked a lot about and taken a lot of heat from is publicly supporting Palestinians in Palestine. You've had a lot of people really angry at you. You say that you have even lost some speaking opportunities, which is hard for me to hear. It's hard for me to hear that you're having that kind of a response because, to say that innocent children and families shouldn't be starved and killed is somehow controversial. Wow. I don't know what to do with that. I don't want that to be controversial. I don't think that should be controversial. But I imagine there are people out there who are thinking, why is he talking about this? Like Palestine and Israel are halfway around the world. He's a nonprofit sector person from the United States. Why is he not just focusing on that? What does he even have to do with that? Why is he even talking about it? How would you answer that question?
I would say it's all related. Our tax dollars are paying for these bombs and for these genocidal actions. We're paying for this genocide. I think it's naive to think that this has nothing to do with us. Well, yeah, yeah, it has. We're sending billions of dollars to Israel. We're sending weapons of destruction over for them to use on people. So it absolutely has everything to do with us here. And I don't know, it has been frustrating the past couple of years that a sector that is supposed to be about equity and justice have in many ways failed this moral test. I've talked to colleagues and I say, we could disagree on things, but can you and I at least agree that it is never okay to kill children? And their response, some of them was like, "Oh, well, it's complicated." I'm like, "There is nothing. This is the least complicated thing in
It's
the
not
entire world
mm-mm.
is whether you should kill children.
Oh,
That is
yeah,
the simplest
it's pretty
ever.
simple. We
Just
just
very simple.
it's like a
Matter
red line.
well, the fact that some people are still equivocating on something as simple as the killing of children has really been demoralizing to me, you
Yeah.
know? On the other hand, I have been so inspired by so many people who face danger, who face being fired because they have been trying to speak up against genocide, many of whom are Jewish colleagues and neighbors. You know, I just feel so moved by their actions. They've been ostracized, they've been called self hating Jews, they've been all sorts of things simply because they're like, no, we don't believe in the actions of the state here against people, against children, against refugees, against mosques and hospitals and stuff. So, yeah, I've been really frustrated and demoralized, and I've also been extremely inspired by people during these past 2 years.
Mhm. Yeah, I appreciate that answer because from my perspective, it is all connected. A lot of times people need like they want to see it in practical ways. So what about just the very fact that folks, when they're experiencing something like is happening there, often end up in our country, right? Because they're trying to get away from it. So I mean, like there is no separation between these things. Like we we all feel it. We're all affected by it. Heck, lots of us are watching this all unfold on our little, pocket computers, and it's traumatizing, but it also could literally become work of the US nonprofit sector. And also there are US nonprofits that are working in Gaza right now too.
Right. And I mean, yeah, again, I think it's just really naive to think we have nothing to do with this when the US has vetoed every single ceasefire deal that has been on the table. Right. And I agree. Even if you don't believe in equity and justice, even for your own survival, be engaged because it will come to our shores.
Mm.
And we don't think about it. Like all these attacks, like for example, I think about the attacks on trans people. And I write about this in the book. Like when Hitler came into power, one of the first communities that he attacked was trans people because like it's a test. It's like if you cannot defend the people who are most likely to be oppressed and ostracized, then that's a test that says, yeah, you can go move to the next group and the next group until you get everyone who criticizes you, who you don't like, right? So yeah, we should all intrinsically care about trans people, right? Because we are human beings who exist in communities together. We should care about one another. But even if you don't, you need to start caring because this is a test and they will come for you too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hate that sometimes the motivation for folks needs to be self-preservation,
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Like I
but
wish we could be in that space, but
but
this
I
is the
mean,
reality.
I hope that you would want to support people out of just being in community with them, caring about them as humans, but even if that doesn't motivate you, self-preservation, like, honestly, this will come to your shore, this will come to your house, this will come to you at some point, unless and until people start standing up and saying, "Stop. No, this is not okay." That is why it's so important for you to be doing this, to be standing up and saying, "Stop. No, this is not okay." I hope you're inspiring many more people to do the same. If they're feeling a lack of courage, to remember to tap into their heart, because again, the root word of courage is heart. So tap into how much you care, tap into how much you love whatever you love, tap into that and have that inspire you to stand up for what is important and what matters. Okay, Vu, we have had a deep conversation so far. I just want to ask you a few fun things if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Okay. Why did you become a vegan? I realized I don't know.
This was I don't know. I always felt really uncomfortable eating animals, but I kept eating them because they're delicious. Plus, growing up in Vietnam, a lot of our cuisines rely on meat products, fish sauce, and so on. And so I just get used to eating that. But it just never felt good to me to do that, especially when I felt the dissonance between this very Buddhist upbringing and learning about compassion and then eating animals and causing pain and suffering. So I just carried that with me until a friend became vegan in high school and she gave me this pamphlet called Why Vegan? And I read that and I was like, you know what? I'm vegan now. There's no way. And it was just such a good decision to make. It would still take me several years to fully become vegan because cheese is very addictive.
Yes.
And I would sneak down in the middle of the night. I would sneak down at like 1 a.m. just to like eat some cheese and some stuff. And yeah, so it took a while, but now it's been 20 something years that I have become a vegan. It's also, I think, one of the roots of my activism. I remember being in college, and this was before veganism was, like a mainstream thing. There was a very fringe thing. And
Mhm.
so campus there was like no vegan food. They had like salads for us vegans. And I started a group called the Vegetarians Union, VU, and mobilized a couple hundred people to join this club. And we went and, we talked to the administration,
Wow.
and got vegan food, right? So, and yeah, it was a struggle because many of us fainted on that walk to the administration building. Our leather shoes kept breaking. We were low on iron. Um, right. So, but we got it. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. If we can mobilize like this, and we can actually, if we can have a bigger voice if we just speak together as one voice. It really inspired me to realize, yeah, this is what we need to do. This is how change happens.
Mhm.
It's when we support one another, when we mobilize and we organize. That's how change happens.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I mean, you just kind of explained the whole arc of change, like the initial moment within and how then you connect with others who are the same, and then you go and speak to someone that has the power to make it happen. So, well done, young Vu. So, here's another question. Why are you so passionate about the Oxford comma? And I have to say, I also am very passionate about the Oxford comma. So, every time I see you rah Oxford comma ing, I'm like, yay, yay, yes. I want more people to hear this. But how did this start? Why are you?
That just makes it looks better. It sounds better. It makes things clearer. I don't know. And I just don't like it when I don't see the Oxford comma. It just feels like something is missing, like, or someone's being very lazy and not adding this thing. Like there's certain things that belong together, like peanut butter and jelly, but other things don't. And so, wait, if we're gonna list them, we need to have that final comma there. So I don't know. We
Yes,
could probably spend the entire next episode talking about the Oxford comma.
it just makes everything so much clearer. It just,
Us.
yes. Okay, I'm just seriously, people, use the Oxford comma. I don't know, the AP doesn't know what they're talking about, honestly. They just don't know what they're doing.
No, no,
So,
not
okay,
big fan.
I heard a rumor that you did a stand-up comedy routine at a recent gathering of sector leaders. What's the story? And do you plan to do this more?
Yeah, I mean, well, I've been giving hundreds of keynotes now, and half of it is basically stand-up comedy. But this is the first time where I was like, I'm just actually gonna embrace this stand-up comic role now. And it was kind of freeing because one, it allowed me to like dress like a slob. Once you're doing a formal keynote, you gotta dress up with a tie and whatever, like a suit or slacks. You can't wear jeans and flip flops. I was wearing jeans and flip flops because people expect very little of stand-up comics in terms of how they dress. The other thing is it allowed me to incorporate a lot more of my personal life into my speech, some of which were kind of risque, like about my dating life and so on. And it was kind of freeing to like not leave that part of myself behind because that's actually where a lot of the humor comes from. Is from not about grants, which I think managed to make funny on occasion, but it's the personal stuff that I think is really funny. And it's quite hilarious. I was talking about actually, it was I think one of my favorite moments from that set was I was talking about how because I was been so outspoken about Palestine, my speaking engagements dropped, and because of that, I had to think about different ways to make money, including starting a nonprofit OnlyFans, and that would just involve me dressing up in a Ross Dress for Less shirt and reading in a sexy voice like successful grant awards letters. Like that
You
would be
could do
my
more of the ASMR. You've been doing some ASMR on Instagram. You could do more of that.
right.
You
So I don't know. It's a way to
you
incorporate
could
some of
like
that.
make an OnlyFans about removing your Ross dress for less shirt. Button by button.
Yeah, yeah, right. While reading grant awards
Yeah.
letter. I don't know. I mean, we are there's a lot of humor in the sector. There's a lot of joy and humor in the sector. And in the world, despite everything going on, I think people really need to be reminded of that. So you asked like, will there be more of this? I'm really hoping so. I want to go and do more stand up than my angry rants that I'm known for. And I think I actually enjoy that more. And I think people they like it and they find it helpful. One person came up to me afterwards and was like, "I think that's your comedy just kind of healed me because I've been feeling so bad and I thought I was waiting to be able to cry and what I realized was I was just waiting to laugh."
Oh,
And I think it was probably one of the best compliments I've received. And it made me realize that the sector is full of brilliant, amazing people who are just going through so much right now. And maybe my role could be to bring more joy and laughter. Um, yeah.
yeah. I agree. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. So yeah, keep bringing that sugar. I think that your laughs and your baby animal pictures are definitely very welcome. Very welcome. So what's a fun fact about you that probably a lot of people don't know about you?
A fun fact about me that people do not know. I can roll my eyelids inside out.
What?
Yeah, it's very freaky. You do not want to. It will scar you. I sometimes do it, so it'll freak out my kids. So
I
that's
mean, maybe that's like a built-in Halloween costume?
yeah. I mean, I can just flip my lids inside out and just look. Yeah, it looks really terrible. So I
Yuck.
don't. Well, you
Okay.
asked me a fun fact.
I know. I mean, it's fun and gross, but it's fun because it makes you weird, and weird is fun. Okay, here's my last question for you, Boo, because I agree with you that we need more joy right now. I think a lot of us are getting too caught up in anger and fear and all of these emotions that are heavy, heavy, heavy. We need to feel more lightness. We need to feel more joy and hope. So let's focus on that for our last question. What is bringing you joy and hope right now?
Oh, what's bringing me joy and hope? I get a lot of joy from my kids, first of all. I think they're hilarious. They are very sassy. I do not know why or where they got it
How?
from.
Where did they get that from?
No idea. No idea. Uh, they're
Science.
just, yeah, they're hilarious. They're getting ready for Halloween now. They're like excited about picking out their Halloween costume this year. So that's one thing. But also just like the people in the sector who are just continuing to do amazing stuff despite everything, who still continue to laugh and stuff, and while they make the world better. So I'm very inspired by that. I also find a lot of joy in like TV shows. I've been trying to really focus on shows that are just showing people from marginalized community just being human, right? Like I think so much of inequity and injustice have dehumanized us, where we just reduce people to just like their suffering and their oppression. They're
Yeah.
hilarious and they're messy, and some of them are assholes, and we deserve to be assholes and messy people too.
Oh,
And it's
totally.
really right. So like for example, I was watching North of North with
Yes, I
Glenn.
love that show.
It's so great. It's about like this messy anyway woman who lives in this community up in Alaska, and she's dating people, and her mom is also messy. And I'm like, I love this. I love it because we deserve to be imperfect human beings. That's part of humanity. Is that
Hmm.
we can be imperfect too. And we
Mhm.
don't always have to be defined by our oppression and the systems that we have to exist in. So I love it. I just love shows that just show people being funny and messy and making mistakes. You know, it's joyful to me.
It is fun. Yeah, they're just being like goofy and silly and just like slapstick, but also like it's been a little while since I watched that show, but I don't even remember them bumping up against too many oppressive systems in that show because they just are living their lives. Like they get to just live their lives and have their ceremonies and have their radio show and like do their fun things and like um I mean, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they do touch on it. There's the white woman who's the director of
that's
the
right.
Biden
That's
Center,
right. Oh, yes.
and, so it doesn't
That's
steer away from
that's
the
right. That's
racism.
right. Yes.
I think about shows like Insecure, for
Oh,
example,
yes. Yeah.
another really great show about people just existing and living and loving and waking up and having complicated feelings. That's humanizing to
Mhm.
me, and I think we need more of these types of shows.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. It sounds like we have very similar interests in the kinds of shows to watch. And it is fun to just sort of take a break from the world we live in for a little bit and live in another world. And I like to do that too.
I do like that we have more shows about people from the margin just being their awesome, imperfect selves.
Hmm. Amen. Yeah, I agree. More of that. Well, Vu, is there anything else that you want to say just to close out our conversation?
Hang on, everyone. All right. I know it's been really rough. I know if you're feeling really crappy, you're not alone. Okay. So, it feels kind of hopeless right now with everything going on. I like to remind people of a few things. One is that this is a sign that things that we've been doing, the push for equity and justice, this is a sign, the pushback is a sign that it's working, everything we've been doing. Also, the fact that oftentimes throughout history, some of the worst periods in history are followed by some of the best periods of progress.
Mm.
And so we're in one of those awful periods right now. But I'm hopeful that it will lead to even better things as people confront capitalism and patriarchy and white supremacy and other systems that have not served us well, has not served humanity very well.
Mhm.
And so I'm hopeful that from this we will develop a better society. You know, so just keep up the fight and summon the courage of our ancestors and people who fought these fights before. So hang in there, okay? We'll make it through together.
Thank you, Elder Vu. That's that's a very I think that I needed to hear that, and I think a lot of others probably need to hear it. It's good that you are saying that. So thank you. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for opening up and sharing of yourself. Thank you for sharing about your book. My hope is that many people find you through the book, buy the book, read the book, and then we start to see things change and how we go about our community work. Because I've started saying community work now too, because I sort of feel like it maybe doesn't always have to be nonprofits, and maybe we will start to do community work outside of nonprofits
We
too.
may have to. It would keep getting attacked and defunded and delegitimized and stuff. Then yeah, that's also mentioned in the book is that we may need some different structures. Maybe we need to form more religious organizations. So
Mhm.
the Church of Fu is coming soon. Make sure you believe in the Oxford comma, or you're not going to accept it.
I'm in. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully, you're left with some inspiration, some things to ponder, some topics that will spur further conversation between you and your friends and colleagues. If you'd like to engage in this conversation with the For the Love of Humanity podcast community, you can leave a message by texting or calling 1-612-440-4819. That's 1-612-440-4819. Be sure to indicate whether you're cool with your thoughts being shared on the air. Then, want to help us spread the word? Don't forget to follow and rate and review the pod wherever you get your podcasts. That'll help more people find us and help our community grow. Finally, visit the online community at fortheloveofhumanity.community and be sure to subscribe when you're there. Bye for now, friends.